Forza Horizon 4 recently and oh boy, it's gorgeous. But after I've played it for some time, I started to think about racing genre in general. What's the future of it? Where else it could go? What's new gameplay mechanics it could show me? After some time, I've ended up with the conclusion that this is as good as it gets. I can see where racing games could go, where they could push forward. In my opinion, in future games of the genre, we are going to get only new cars and better visuals. That's it. To prove my opinion, let's get back in the time to see how racing games have evolved throughout a few decades. When I was a kid, I had a Sega Mega Drive 2 console, and the first racing game I've ever played was Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge 2. Its concept is pretty simple. Reach the checkpoints in time in order to get more time to continue your ride. Despite the fact that the game was created for earlier PCs and consoles, it still had old arcade roots. High difficulty for a player that forces him to buy more tokens to get more lives. Now when I think about arcades, I really see them as the first digital casino. But in its core, first racing games were simple. No progression system, usually you had no other cars, just beat the time. Gaming for the sake of gaming. A year later, after the first Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge release, 1991, Road Rush came out. There we could have a bit more interesting gameplay with fights. This was a logical improvement of the stale and simple gameplay mechanics. At the same time, we could play Ridge Racer, different Formula 1 simulators that all were just variations of a simple arcade game. The more interesting approach, in my opinion, we could see in Sega Rally Championship. This was another evolution route for a racing game. Here we could see first attempts to make a game of this genre more real. Thus, in early 2000s, my dad bought me Le Mans 24 Hour for a PC. It was my first introduction to a simulator. Can't say I really loved this game, but nevertheless, it was an interesting experience. A bit later, I've introduced myself to Colin McRae Rally. At this time, games were starting to take more certain shapes, but still it felt that something is missing. Until I finally played Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. Now this is just another dead series that EA still tries to milk, but back in the day, like it or not, Need for Speed was dominant, most popular racing game in the genre. It was deciding where racing games should go. Probably you won't find a person that haven't played at least one Need for Speed game. And Hot Pursuit 2 was a prime example why it was so popular. More complex gameplay with at least a few game modes, I mean cops versus racers, and illusion of a progress. You could unlock new cars and tracks. In high stakes you also could upgrade your vehicle, but it was too bland for my liking, so I wouldn't call it groundbreaking. This was the last typical racing Need for Speed game before a new concept that, at least for a time, changed this genre. Of course, I'm talking about Underground. Its concept changed trends for years. Now we became illegal street racers, our cars have changed from expensive super and sport cars to a simple cheap ones that a lot of people could drive in real life. We've got a detailed tuning system, a lot of race types and in general a new racing game. Need for Speed inspired a lot of clones like Street Racing Syndicate and tuning mechanic that becomes must-have in all car-related games. For example, GTA San Andreas. But with all of its positive moments and improvements, it still felt like you're in a cage. Game couldn't use its full potential. What could you do besides playing the same linear tracks? And that's where Underground 2 came out. Everything is doubled by 2, but also we've got a game changer, free roaming. We've got a city where we could freely ride and also discover a new car shops. This little detail changed everything. What can you do in a racing game? Drive a car, obviously. You could pick a lot of different cars and choose a terrain. What else? You could tune your cars, visually and in performance terms. That's it. In a few hours you will be bored. And that's exactly why we need MMO elements in a racing game. Why GTA and GTA-like games are so popular. You have a huge playground to play with. Same stuff here. In Forza, for example, we could just drive around in our perfect digital car just because we wanted to vibe. We could complete daily challenges, we could find collectibles, we have some sort of a progressive system. Need for Speed Underground 2 made it mainstream. In some time, a lot of racing games started to use the same mechanic, but also it became overused. Most Wanted perfected this concept of racing game with MMO elements, and then Carbon came out. It's a good game in my opinion, but it just was was reusing the same formula. After a few years of the same street racing game, genre tried to become more realistic. Pro Street, Shift, Amazing Grid that introduced us the rewind feature, and so on. Racing games still were trying to find the perfect formula for the gameplay. Perfect game of this type should have a nice balance between the fun and the realism. So circuit track games with expensive sponsored cars looks like a joke now. They are simply boring. At the same time, we've got another approach to a racing game. Simple and fun arcades like Carmageddon, Flatout, Burnout, racing with guns like Mario Kart, different stunt games like Pure, etc. They are simple, fun and entertaining, but how long can you play them all? Mostly you will complete a career of the story in these games and will just move on. So that's why we are stuck with the more real games like Forza. I've played more than 50 hours already and I'm not gonna stop anytime soon. There's just so much what can I do and there are almost no limitations for how I can do it. We have different seasons that really changing the way you drive. You could tune your car or just pick created tunes by the other players if you don't bother. You could go try hard in seasonal events or just freely ride on local roads and fields. If you own DLCs, you could have fun in a Legoland. Just do whatever you want, and this is the magic of the perfected racing game formula throughout the years. But at the same time, I don't see what else you could do here. As I said before, just make better visuals, but in terms of Forza, there's no better ones, and add new cars. And this a bit sad that we're not gonna get nothing fresh, nothing new and groundbreaking. All we could play, at least in a few next years, are variations of Forza Horizon Motorsport or just a simple arcade game.